This is where the spin mechanism goes on your Hamer 540, where the bag sits, and it's taken apart. You can see it right there. And it's interesting. For about 8 years, I didn't know there was a bearing underneath here. And finally, I opened it up and I had shavings all over. And that's why I'm changing this right now, is because last year I noticed there were shavings and there's no grease. And there's one on the bottom here, and that one actually is fine. I greased that. I mean, these bearings are very robust. They'll last a very long time. But if you do notice that you've forgotten this and you grease it and it still works, write it down, create a work order or a maintenance log and say, next time you have some spare time, change it. I mean, these are $10, these bearings, and it'll last you a really long time, and you just pop them off and you put the new one on and it's good to go. Air cylinder, I always recommend writing down the date you changed the air cylinder. Some debate whether you want to add airline oil to it to extend the life of an airline cylinder, because they do come with lubrication. If you add airline oil to it, you might wash out the factory lubrication, and that's something you have to figure out. These are kind of tricky to figure out when they don't work properly. Just someone will say, oh, it just doesn't seem like it works right, or it messes up occasionally. And so it's kind of a little bit of a clue, and they're easy to change. They're not too costly. You may want to try to find a local supplier, but again, the modernized AIS systems, they're always great for sending stuff quick if you get in a crunch. These, not necessarily here on the clamper, right there will break, but if you're using a newer Hamer 540, they actually have a different mechanism up there, so it's not a big deal. But this is actually fairly robust, and this is a brake right here, by the way. It breaks, creates a brake. The springs. Now, I keep a spare of these. Actually, I bought a spare of this and this and this. But in a crunch, a spring company, commercial spring company, will be able to quickly create a new clamp. Because if this breaks, it just does not work. It doesn't work. But when you are ordering these, if you can't find them, like if you have we have Motion Canada, I think it's a US company too. You want to measure the bore, okay? You want to measure the total length, and then you want to measure the distance between the middle of the diameter of the bolt, the middle of diameter of the bolt on this side, and then give them that information. You do see there is some identifying information on both sides there, and that'll help them determine what type of bearing you need. For stuff like this, you will have to go through AIS Modern or even contact Hamer. Now, the one thing to note with Hamer that I ran into is when you ordered parts, they would just ship them one at a time. It was a problem I ran into where I found my shipping costs were going up because they'd have stuff on back order, and then they get it in and they'd ship it right away. And then they get the other item on back order and they ship it right away. And that's when I decided to change to AIS or Modern, because the shipping department, the people doing the parts ordering, always had the decency to talk to you and say, hey, do you want us to group those items? And I found that really helped save. But the best advice I ever got with stuff like this is, if you can find a local supplier, you're going to save money. And so anyways, I hope this gives you a bit of information, some clues, some things to watch out for. This is the Master Iceman of Columbia Ice, a little local ice company up there in Canada. Any questions, please reach out. I'm always glad to connect with fellow Hamer 540 maintenance people. Always eager to learn and share my knowledge.